It's been a busy day of a different sort, which means I get to do a lot of reading to you as headlines we don't hear often have found their way into the NBA discourse today after it was announced that Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier and Portland Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups were arrested and faced charges as a part of a wide-ranging investigation related to illegal sports betting and rigged poker games backed by the Mafia, authorities announced on Thursday. Both have been placed on leave by their teams, the NBA said in a statement. Rozier and Billups were among the 34 people arrested, and the arrests were the result of a years-long investigation covering 11 states and involving tens of millions of dollars, according to FBI Director Kash Patel. In the statement, the NBA said that they are in the process of reviewing the federal indictments announced today. Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups are placed on immediate leave from their teams and will continue to cooperate with the relevant authorities. We take these allegations with the utmost seriousness, and the integrity of our game is our top priority. We've also received already, according to Pablo Torre Finds Out, a statement from Rozier's lawyer, Jim Trusty, saying that his client is, quote, not a gambler and looks forward to winning this fight. Obviously, a lot to take in, but again, Damon Jones right now, the only one allegedly connected in both of these very separate cases. On one side, you've got what Chauncey Billups is accused of involving rigged poker games, which is far outside of the purview of what we normally get. We know this summer we had Gilbert Arenas accused of hosting poker games at his house, but no connection made there in the allegations to the mob, and obviously still waiting to hear anything on that front. What we've had with Terry Rozier here, Dad, is unfortunately something that's been much more common in terms of the allegation around this sport. So your immediate reaction as you saw this news pouring in for both cases today?
Well, it wasn't the first time, and it's not going to be the last time, right? Since the one thing that we have said in other cases where players, whether in college or the pros, have gotten, for lack of a better term, busted is, do we not think the system is working? They're red flagging these. Now, also in the Rozier case, wasn't Rozier cleared by the NBA of this thing that happened back in 2023? That's what's interesting to me is Terry Rozier was cleared of this in 2023, but now the FBI has arrested him for this. And you heard what she said, that he messed with the prop bets, which is what you're going to do now because there are so many prop bets, and then was counting the cash at home. That seems like, and I don't want to say the norm, but that is kind of the norm when you have a gambling situation involving an athlete, a current athlete. It's about them and their prop bets. This Chauncey Billups thing, just like the Gilbert Arenas thing.
Crazy.
With poker. Plus with Chauncey Billups, man, 4 crime families involved? I mean, I wouldn't not want to be involved in that. And we'll see where this goes, obviously, because there were obviously a few dozen people arrested in this, but we know in the sports world what the headlines are going to be, Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups. But boy, 2 really completely different situations.
Yeah, the Chauncey Billups one, for people unfamiliar with the specifics, the allegations allege that these poker games were orchestrated and billed as an opportunity to come play alongside big-name professional athletes. And then from there, using a variety of sophisticated means, they went about trying to rig these games so that they could all make money off people that were the marks coming into this situation. So that one, different. Like you said, when all of a sudden, when you start to hear legitimate Mafia family names, I'm like, all right, this is slightly terrifying and certainly outside of what we've normally seen. But in this instance, if you're looking at it purely through the lens of the world of sports, I do think the NBA, I don't want to say is less concerned about, but when it comes to the integrity of the game is at least less tied into than what Terry Rozier, and we've seen others indicted. This goes back to there are names connected to these allegations to what we already saw for the Jonte Porter case here. And Dad, I'm sure as we look at the timing of this, right? The beginning of the NBA season, maximum coverage as the league is getting going. If you're the NBA and Adam Silver, as you continue to go out here and investigate and potentially punish when these things happen and have to continue to underscore how seriously you take this, the thing that you're trying to avoid is what we already see happen in some corners of Reddit and Twitter and all these different places where you have people watching games through this lens and having to wonder and ask questions. It's what every commissioner of every league was, I'm sure, concerned about as this became more prevalent, was if this starts to infiltrate our player group the way in some instances we've seen alleged here, does it start to cloud the way that people view the product on the court? And that's always the core fear of every league. And it's the biggest threat right now to the NBA as another round of these allegations emerge.
Agree. These are two completely separate issues. And you're right. The one that involves 4 of the 5 crime families terrifies me without question. And we'll see about Chauncey Billups' involvement, just like Gilbert Arenas. Remember, Gilbert Arenas supposedly involved in the poker scheme, said, hey, I just let him use my house. Didn't know what was supposedly going on. We'll find out where the Chauncey Billups situation is. But the Terry Rozier situation, another reason this would look bad for the NBA, Mike, if he were to be found guilty of this, is the fact that the NBA cleared him of this exact thing 2 years ago. So how then will people look at the NBA going, oh, will they look at them a little sideways saying, oh, you're kind of letting that slide. You're not taking ownership of it by clearing him, and then the FBI finds him guilty. And then Damon Jones, a former player who then was a coach and then was an unofficially with the Lakers, supposedly giving up insider information on LeBron James. So we'll see where he falls into this. But it is amazing. The headlines are the headlines, the names that people know, Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier.
Well, and especially with someone who's in that player base as we get ready to welcome in Joe Vardon from The Athletic discussing this. I will say, as we heard the announcement before in that press conference, we should be able to give these things funny names like Operation Nothing But Bet in the middle of very serious things. I saw the New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch on Terry Rozier said, as the NBA season tips off, his career is already benched. Not for injury, but for integrity. We got to leave our 30-second stand-up routines at home when we're reporting on this. So with that being said, Joe, thanks for giving us some time today. Just walk me through your understanding of how this came together, any knowledge of you had of this potentially coming to light as the season got going and what you've heard so far.
Well, the timing, as I think you guys are alluding to a little bit, the timing is interesting, given that the NBA season just started. We're 2 days into it. We have to acknowledge that when Jonte Porter, who was a part-time NBA player and was on the Toronto Raptors minor league team, when he was accused and ultimately pleaded guilty, basically to trading information about himself with gamblers so they and he could profit, and also for betting on NBA games. Those investigations at the time suggested that there were more players involved. So we knew this day was coming. Where it got crazy is that there is a separate gambling case involving the mob and 4 of the 5 families. I mean, those are things I used to read about with, my dad's side of the family. By the way, you two guys being Notre Dame guys, Tom Pagna is my uncle by marriage, so Mike Sr. at least knew him very well. But anyway, we the mob is like something that I would read about or would hear about through the grapevine, and to be watching this here in New York and hear Director Patel mention the NBA and the mob in the same sentence, it just it blows you away. And then, I think the third thing is that you have this one man, Damon Jones, who is involved in both cases. So that's strange. But then secondly, and this is the most serious part, is that he's accused of trading information with bettors about LeBron James' availability. Now, let's be as clear as we could possibly be. LeBron is not accused of any wrongdoing, and no reason to suspect that he's under investigation. But it's in the indictment that Damon had traded information with bettors about a player who was not yet on the injury report, that missed that game, Well, that turned out to be LeBron. And so you are talking about a real illegal betting scandal that reaches that far up the chain. And that's bad.
So obviously, yes, the gambling is bad, but also how bad would it look for the NBA if what I mentioned before comes to light? Terry Rozier was cleared of this by the NBA in 2023. And if through the FBI and the legal system he were to be found guilty, how bad would that look for the NBA?
So I think it would look bad. And I think, you know, it's funny. I don't know if you guys could see, I signed into the Zoom, but I was having my finger up like this as to say, hold on. I was on a call about that exact point, that exact point. And the league is saying, look, we, we don't have the subpoena power and the resources that the FBI has. We did our investigation. We didn't find wrongdoing, which, if you want to play the semantics game, fine. Is that the same as clearing him? I don't know. But the basic point is like, look, we don't, as the NBA doesn't have the hammer that the federal government has. And so they're saying, look, it's possible. It's entirely possible that there would be information that we don't have access to, people that we can't compel to testify. Certainly, if their informants or who is giving the federal government this information is not a player, then the league would have no authority whatsoever to compel those people to testify. So, I don't mean to carry water here for the league, but there is a plausible way that this could happen, where the NBA could do its investigation and then the federal government could come back and say, no, this actually happened.
Yeah, no, totally understand that. As you pointed out, the resources available to both parties relative to this are drastically different, and I think will be borne out as we go along. The next question, where do we go from here? The NBA announced both Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups placed on leave at this time. What's the next thing we're keeping an eye out for?
Well, I think we're watching for a lot here, guys. I do. Okay, so for starters, so I already mentioned the Lakers. And then, of course, the Rozier thing happened when he was playing for the Hornets. So that's two teams. Okay. Well, the indictment also says that there was illegal betting activity going on around the Orlando Magic. So that's three teams. And then there was another allegation in the indictment that said there was stuff going on around the Blazers, which gets really confusing because Chauncey, their coach at the time of the alleged illegal activity, was also under investigation for this mob thing, but somehow was not charged. And you guys get the point on how confusing this is and how wide ranging it is. And the bottom line is we are going to be looking for more names of players and coaches we know. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, look, it's not just the NBA, but it's all the major professional sports, okay? It's Major League Baseball, and it's the NFL, it's the PGA Tour, and it's also college sports. They have formal relationships with these sports books. And, there's an argument to be made that those formal relationships actually lead to more, scrutiny and a safety net to protect the public from illegal sports betting activity. Maybe that's true, but there's also a incredible integrity issue here right now. And so we will be looking to see if these, lucrative multi-million-dollar agreements between the leagues and these sports books, if they continue in earnest, because the players and the coaches are getting in trouble, and it's happening since these partnerships have been reached.
No question, going to be a major crossroads coming up here. Joe, we appreciate your time, especially on such short notice. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, wish could talk to you under better circumstances.
No worries.
Yeah,
Thanks.
No kidding. I'm sure we'll do it sometime soon. But he's right. This is going to be the crossroads for all leagues going forward. While these cases have involved a small number of the constituency of each of these leagues, college and pro, the size and scope of the headlines, how big it feels, and how central it is to the integrity of the game risks creating a feeling amongst fans that this is ubiquitous. And that's what the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, MLB, college sports are all going to have to guard against going forward, and continue to deal punitively with this, and potentially explore other creative alternatives. We know certain leagues had talked about tamping down the number of prop bets available or who they're available for, to try and curb some of these areas where the impropriety has seemed most frequent so far.
But again, that's the place. It's the prop bets, right? But are the books going to want to give up the prop bets? They make a ton of money on that. So, I mean, is it all part and parcel together with the professional leagues and all of, not just the money line bets and team bets, but the prop bets as well? And the leagues are making a ton of money off this now.
They are. So, again, lots of questions that still need to be answered, but the big headline for today, again, Terry Rozier, Miami Heat guard, Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups, arrested and faced charges as a part of a pair of wide-ranging investigations into illegal sports betting and rigged poker games. For more on all of this, Ben Fawkes, kind enough to join us now, Yahoo Sports senior sports betting analyst, on a wild day here. So, Ben, as we look at the situation, tell me if we're correct in separating these two cases in terms of importance and severity for the NBA in particular. How do both of these weigh in the league's ever-present quest to make sure that the fans believe that what they're watching is uncorrupted?
Yeah, I would say if you see this beard, it's a little more gray because this has been quite a day, and seemingly every couple of minutes something changes in this story. So we kind of had this breaking news early in the day. We obviously saw kind of the alert that there was Chauncey Billups and illegal gambling, and I think immediately what everyone thinks is, oh, is this a Pete Rose situation, right? There's an active coach in the NBA. Obviously knows his game plans, who's playing, who isn't playing. There's a lot of ramifications potentially for that and sports betting, none of which are good. We kind of then learned there are two separate probes, and one is Chauncey Billups has been named in one of them, which, as you guys mentioned, is essentially, I guess I'd say, a celebrity endorser for these illegal poker games, right? And so in other words, they're getting these mafia families have these poker games in order to entice whales or people who have a lot of money and want to meet, let's say, celebrities like Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones. They say, hey, you can play poker with Chauncey Billups. That's how they get them to this game. Obviously, then the issues being, as was indicated there, the games are essentially rigged. There's all this technology. And so these whales, the people that are being brought in, think obviously they're just playing in this game. They have a chance to win. And in fact, they don't really. And so that's kind of one concern. I think that's under the category of bad. I think that the other one is under the category of worse, and that is the sports betting probe, in which Terry Rozier has been named, in which that also is connected to the Jonte Porter, who obviously has already been, had basically gone through the court system a bit. I believe he's being sentenced in December. He has pleaded guilty. So those two are connected. I think the big thing here that we have to kind of see, and that has come out, I think, in the last hour or so, is that Chauncey Billups is not named in the sports betting indictment. However, when you read through the indictment, and I am very far from a lawyer, but apparently today I'm playing one on TV, they basically are naming what they call, and I'll just look it up so I'm reading from it, a co-conspirator 8, who is an individual whose identity is known to the grand jury, is a resident of Oregon, an NBA player from approximately 1997 through 2014, and an NBA coach since at least 2021. Obviously, that seems to match up with Chauncey Billups. The bigger issue with all of that is that this co-conspirator, on March 24th, the Blazers played a game against the Bulls. The co-conspirator basically told someone else in this case that the Blazers are going to be resting all of their top scorers. What happens? The Blazers end up losing 124-96, not covering the spread. Dame Lillard, Yusuf Nurkic, Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons don't play. And obviously those bets cash. And the players were not on the injury report during that day. and then all of a sudden before the game don't play. So again, not named, but seemingly matching up in that. I think that is a big thing we have to figure out here. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, listen, there's still a lot of pages and investigation to go through, but it does seem in the pro sports world and the college world, a lot of this hinges around prop bets. Is there anything that can be done about prop bets?
Man, it's a great question. There's a lot of different ways to go. I don't think you can eliminate prop bets because, as everyone will say, people have been betting on sports since before it was legal. People are still going to have prop bets. They're just going to wager on them on illegal markets or neighborhood bookies, right? So you can eliminate them in the legal market if you want. That doesn't mean it's going to completely go away. You can also do what they call as a one-way market, right? So you can just wager on, let's say, Jonte Porter only, it's 5.5 points. You can only bet on the over, right? Because that's a lot more difficult to have something where you can ensure you go under. That's where a lot of these have happened. That's what happened with Rozier. That's what happened with Jonte Porter. Is much like the NFL, right? You can say, hey, a quarterback, I'm not going to complete X amount of passes. They have a way that they can keep that under, whereas it's much more difficult to go over something like that. So you can choose to offer prop bets, but only offer one-way markets. I think some sort of solution they'll probably have is just limit the number of prop bets, right? Do we need prop bets on the top 13 players playing in an NBA game? Most likely not. Can you just have it, the top 8, right? The top 6 guys by minutes, however you determine it. I think that's one potential way that they can go, but prop bets aren't going away. I think college is a different story, but I think in the pros, I don't think prop bets are going away. I think they just have to be regulated a little differently, perhaps.
We know for the league, they announced both player and coach put on leave for the time being, but what's the next step for the NBA now and how they approach this?
I think hopefully there isn't another shoe to drop, really. I think they're going to let this play out, right? And continue to obviously monitor. There's a lot of integrity monitoring systems, which I think it's important to say with legalization, that's how a lot of these things were caught. All of these types of scandals were going on pre-legalization as well. It's just a lot more difficult to catch. So I think it's a kind of cause and effect and a little bit of a catch-22 where legalization has caused some of these things because there's more markets and obviously the ease with mobile betting in all these states, but also has helped to identify them. I think the NBA is going to go about a little bit business as usual. We obviously saw Adam Silver on the Pat McAfee show talking about prop bets earlier this week. It's clearly a point of contention, something they're looking at. I think they'll probably talk to the sports books and come up with some potential solution, maybe with prop bets like that. But you just can't have potentially a coach telling people about if players are starting or not. And again, we don't know that that's Chauncey Billups, but there are a lot of things that seem to line up that way. That's the situation the NBA and other leagues just can't have, because then you are questioning the integrity of the game.
I mean, these guys are out of the league if this all is true, right? I mean, there's no question, correct?
I would think so. I mean, Jonte Porter already got that lifetime ban, and that was him essentially manipulating games. I suppose that you could draw a little of a line in that, it wasn't Chauncey Billups, as far as we know, if that is the case, and he is that coach betting on the games. He's essentially selling proprietary information, but I would believe that would probably all still fall under the larger umbrella of who would be hiring him again as a coach if that is indeed true. So I would imagine it would be the same punishment.
It's an absolutely not unprecedented in some ways. Obviously, the Chauncey Billups side of this and the poker games feels like a whole different animal at this point. But what we've got going here on the NBA side, going to be really interesting. To your point, if there is another shoe that's still left out there to drop,